Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Schick, Director of Product Development for Atomic Mass Games, and today we have on our painting palette stand thing, whatever it's called, I don't know, it's a mic stand. We have a TIE Advanced from X-Wing, so we're going to be painting this up. I'm going to do a couple things to this little ship. We're going to, I think, take it into a black evil color scheme, and then we might give it some green flames or something like that. That was Summer's request, so we'll play around with some high contrast today. So some really dark black, and then some really bright accent colors, probably flames. I'm feeling flamey today. All right, so with that, let's just get started. Boom! So here is our TIE Advanced. If you're looking at it, you'll be like, this looks exactly like the TIE Advanced that comes out of the box. And you would be correct, except for one small difference. Before I brought it over here to start painting on, I actually hit it with a little bit of matte sealant. So effectively just artist matte from a rattle can. And what that does is it kind of seals up the miniature, and it also provides a nice little primer coat for the paint to stick to. So you can paint straight out of the box on these X-Wing ships if you want to. But if you want to see the best marker of success, it's always best to put down a matte primer coat. You can, of course, as we've done in the past, like if you watched me paint the Y-Wing a couple weeks ago, you can completely reprime these and start from scratch. But I figured that because this blue-gray color that was already on the base coat would work really well with my Army Painter Speed Paint Grim Black, that I would just leave it. So we'll get a nice little blue undertone, which I would want for my black color anyway. And it was just quicker and simpler to do it this way. Also, if we just wanted to add some green flames or maybe a shark mouth or something to it, just give it a little bit of that extra like personalized flash and flare, we could do that as well without having to rebase the whole thing. So a lot of different options that you can do here when it comes to like, are you going whole hog, fully repainting, all that stuff. But to start, I'm just, again, going to use this Army Painter Grim Black Speed Paint over the blue. And I don't really mind if I get it over the wings as well, because we'll probably go over those with a different color. Maybe if we have time. If not, it'll just kind of like deepen up those colors and get them nice and dark. And we're just going to take this to a nice little Sith level black. And then from there, we'll start doing some of our blinging out customization with either black flames or green stripes or black flames. Oh, that'd be intense. Not what I meant. Some kind of flame effect or maybe some striping. I don't know. We'll give it some high, cool contrast, so it can go really fast, because that's super important. If you don't give it like sick racing stripes or something, then how's it going to know that it can go super fast, So you'll see, hopefully on camera and stuff as we do this, that blue-gray hull color is giving us a nice little undercoat, which is helping our blacks look a bit more realistic. It's giving us a nice little highlight for the speed paint to go over. And this would normally be how I would probably approach doing a black anyway, is by using a bluish undercoat, because blue blacks are really slick and they do look pretty sinister as well. So they're a great way to start. You get that shininess to them a little bit. You can use a lot of different colors for your undercoats though. So if you don't want a blue, use a purple. Purple will make it feel very alien and kind of like unnatural. So purple blacks can be really cool. You'll see those in a lot of like modern comics and stuff. They use a lot of purple black because it is a really nice mixture of colors, mostly on things that they want to be otherworldly or kind of like spooky. Spooky blacks are often purple. You can use green, you can use red. Ooh, drop my brush. Smooth, but I caught it. So any of those can work pretty well. Yeah, it's plenty of things that are happening in the world. Some things I can't talk about, chat. I wouldn't even know where to start, even if I did. But if you got an X-Wing style question, I'm more than happy to answer. Star Wars, anything like that. Something akin to what we're talking about now. Otherwise, much like future releases, I can't speculate on anything. even if I could. Do 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 do. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Come in, and just for consistency's sake, I'll make sure that that's all hit. All right, so we've really deepened up our colors on this. And I'm going to grab out the hairdryer now just to speed up our dry time because we got time to go. So if Summer can turn off the sound really quick. Give me a thumbs up, Summer, so I don't blast everyone's ears out. Hairdryer go! And I will get the underside of this ship as well, even though we're not going to really see it on camera. Just for completeness' sake. Yeah, if you go to any hobby store, if you're looking for like crackle effects for a base, there's tons of different crackle paint options that you can find in any arts and crafts hobby store. So lots of different options and opportunities. Some really great articles as well that'll talk about how to use them to get different effects. Applying heat to the crackle paint at different intervals and stuff will totally change how it works out. So it's just a lot of play. All right, we're going to, oh, I don't want that. That's an ink. We're going to find ourselves a red color really quick. We're going to do the cockpit canopy kind of stuff with this red, just for extra contrast. Well, maybe we should do it green if we're going to do green flames. Ooh, questions. All right, I've changed my mind. We're going to grab some green. This will work. Grab some green skin flesh. I'm going to mix it in with some black. We're going to make ourselves a nice green black. So we're just going to come in and start hitting these pieces of glass. Just because that brush doesn't want to play ball with me as much. I'm going to shift over to a smaller size. So I'm not going to worry about being too particular here because I don't need to cover the entire panel. In fact, I want to leave the deepest recesses black anyway because that will help give the illusion of our glass panels here. And if I go over on little window frames, I can always go back and cover those up really easy. So if I'm a little messy here, that's okay as well. So we're not going to like stress too much about being perfect. Let's get these little hatch colors though. Okay, and then we'll go in and grab some brighter green. AMG dice trays, oh my gosh. Well, Tony made some special for our streams, but I think any kind of like AMG dice tray would really have to come from our sister studio Gamegenic. They're the ones who do all the fancy dancy accessories and stuff, so we'll send an email and see if we can't convince them to do some sweet dice rolling trays and stuff. Because that'd be pretty cool, I agree. Lost sales. Oh my goodness. I'm going to defer the giant illicit, what do we got? Tracking fob, illicit upgrade. You should ask that question on the rules forum. And our fearless rules moderator and probably lead developer Michael Plummer and Gabe Devs will let you know how that works. But without having the cards in front of me, I couldn't even hazard a guess. Okay, and then we're just going to go in. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. That's not the yellow I want. This will work. Marduk yellow. I'm going to mix yellow into my green to make kind of a nice bright highlight. And I suppose as an option, I probably could have found something in the scale line that would have worked just as well, like maybe toxic waste green or something. But because I had these colors like right next to me, this is just as easy. So my goal here is just to add like that tiny little bit of highlight at the top of the glass. Kind of looking at that, I realized that I should have done that a little different, but that's okay. So just give it that little bit of like reflection. Which will help sell the idea that it's, you know, some kind of composite glass reflective canopy. Maybe it's going from the inside, maybe from the outside, who knows? Let's add a couple little crosses. So there's that. Then we can go back through with our black. Yeah, we'll just grab some flat black and then we'll go through and we'll touch up the little edges. One of the issues that you're seeing is, so one of the issues we're running into local is a lot of people feel overwhelmed with the amount of cards upgrades we have. So part of, I think part of that issue, you know, there are folks who really enjoy and love the customization of X-Wing and how in the weeds you can get when it comes to creating your own ships and kitting out your own forces. The standard upgrade or the standard loadouts that we've been showing, especially for Battle of Yavin, and then the ones we talked about with the Battle for Endor and Coruscant and all those other ones that we kind of discussed at Mini Stravaganza. Those will hopefully step in and start to add some more options for folks who are either new or don't want to spend as much time like really worrying about the customization portion as much. And you're going to start seeing more and more standard loadout style cards and stuff included going forward, in addition to the standard, you know, ship card, upgrade cards, pilot cards, all of that stuff. So it is something that we want to address. We want to make sure that people have lots of different access points into the game. So, okay, so let's go ahead and we got our red out, so we might as well do our little blaster cannons. Even though they shoot green lasers, I'm going to do them as red just to make them stand out. Overload the green. Okay. So there's that. I mean, at this point, you could definitely call this whole repaint done, and you've got yourself a nice little like Shadow Tie Advanced. It's got a cool green cockpit. You got our little laser cannons all marked out, and we could be good to go. Let's go ahead and just move on to like the next level, which we'll see how this goes with the painting going on. So most people here are super into train play and want those So it's not an alt format. The standard loadouts that have been shown with Battle of Yavin and stuff like that, they're going to be legal for standard tournament play, standard play, all that stuff. So if that's the way you want to go, and you want to not worry so much about being overwhelmed with the cards, those standard loadouts are going to be a great way for you to do that. And, you know, they'll be balanced points wise and competitively, like somewhat competitively wise. You know, they're going to be expected to play against the entire field of X-Wing. So they're being looked at just like any other ship release would be, or any other pilot card. So, you know, as more and more of those become available and start to get introduced into the game, there's, I think, going to be an even greater amount of opportunity for folks to come in and, you know, consider that as an option. So I'm just kind of roughly sketching out a little bit of my green flame texture here on the back. Yeah, I mean, well, are we talking about, so since the same pilot and the same ship card can appear twice, standard loadout custom, has there been thoughts of any two versions of the same custom pilot ship at two different points with different loadout values? Not really. Mostly because I think there's a level of flexibility there that is both good and bad. If you wanted to do a wedge with two different loadout values, you know, offering the quote unquote best wedge can open you up to like some problems, with the idea being that, you know, now best wedge, the best wedge pilot skill at the correct loadout value or at a flexible loadout value is going to wind up overtaking maybe a wedge that doesn't have as great a pilot skill, or maybe not one that's as universally applicable, but, you know, you can balance some of that stuff or make interesting choices with the loadout values being a part of it. So maybe you take less optimal pilot skill wedge or pilot ability wedge because his loadout value is either higher, his point cost is different. Like, there's a number of considerations that come in to play with all of those different values, and having those things kind of kid each other out, especially when you're talking about, you know, a couple different versions of the same pilot or the same character. You want to keep those options and opportunities open for exploration and for future game use and all that stuff. And that's one of the challenges of a living, ever-evolving game is, you know, you always have to be kind of thinking about the future, even if you're necessarily not thinking about the future at the time. Otherwise, you get into trouble where, like, you'll have a cool idea, but maybe it doesn't work now because you've baked yourself into a corner. And sometimes that's just the natural evolution of things, and sometimes that's not what you want. So it's that push-pull tension of anything creative and design-wise where you're coming in and trying to make those choices interesting and exciting and fun. So could it happen? Maybe. I wouldn't expect it to happen very often, if at all, purely because part of a unique character suite of abilities is that loadout value. And you want to leave yourself room for other opportunities and growth with different pilots and different spots. Now maybe you're like, well, this is the only time we'll ever do this pilot. And we want there to be some customization, some flexibility. So you go that direction, right? And that could definitely work. We'll see if we have time for that. Okay. Do I feel like any factions are complete for the ships in them, or do you only focus on pilots? I mean, that's tough, right? Because obviously there are a limited amount of ships in Star Wars continuity. So, you know, from a game balance perspective, the goal is always to make sure that if nothing else was ever created or introduced into the setting or the world, you know, the faction would still be viable and playable and have a lot of opportunities and openness for players to explore and enjoy as it went. So, you know, the cheater answer is that I don't think any faction needs new ships. And if it does, then there are ways to address that aren't necessarily adding more ships. No, you should bring your camera down, ma'am.
I thought bringing your stick up would be easier, but okay.
No, it's not easy. Yeah, I think as far as like points adjustments and stuff go, they are a unique way to kind of keep the game evolving because they ask you to solve different challenges and stuff. But I think one of the more exciting things now is that scenario play can dramatically impact, you know, the questions being asked, the solutions that have to be found. Like good scenarios that evolve and change and force players to adapt to the things that they're asking can be more healthy for a game and a meta in terms of keeping it fresh and exciting than just simply changing the points on something, right? Like you change the points on something and now it's like, now you go, okay, well now I'm really just being asked like what's more efficient, but the puzzle I'm trying to solve is still the same. It's still the same puzzle, right? Whatever the mission objective was before, destroy all the enemy ships, destroy more than my opponent without sacrificing as many points, collect all of the appropriate objective crates, like whatever that scenario is, it's a different puzzle every time, right? You can make them different and unique questions. Whereas when you just change points value, all you're really doing is just saying, okay, well, do the math analysis a little different now. You know, come up with the better answer to what is most efficient at X point value. And so you can change that, and then there's this moment of self-exploration and discovery where now you have to determine as a community or as a group or whatever, you know, what the answer to that question is, what the math answer is. But it's not really challenging you with a different question. It's the same question. The numbers are just different, right? Scenarios are so crucial, and we love them so much, and we believe in them so much because a scenario gives you a different puzzle to solve. So your pieces are all the same, but now you have to look at that puzzle and say, okay, well, I have all these pieces. How do I make them fit? How do I make them fit this versus that? And the more of those you throw in and add, the more difficult it is to come up with a perfect solution, and that's what you want. Do you want me to move, Summer? What do you need here?
Nothing.
I mean, I'll happily move, but I'm not shifting my position right now because this is like,
Nope, just trying to sharpen the image.
this is the right height for me. So yeah, I think overall, you know, the desire to keep the game feeling alive and exciting and fresh and all that stuff remains very much at the forefront of all of our thoughts as well. But I think we have a, you know, we have a much more exciting and dynamic tool when it comes to scenarios, in addition to, you know, should the need arise or be required, the balance adjustments that doing like points updates and stuff will allow you to do. But points updates, in the end, shouldn't necessarily be the primary mode in which you refresh the game experience, because ideally you want to hit that point of like quote unquote perfect balance, which if you've watched anything where we've talked about perfect balance before, that's a lie. We don't want perfect balance because miniatures games are not about perfect balance. They're about interesting choices. So you want imperfect balance for players to figure out and to puzzle through, and for players to be able to make like really cool and fun choices. A little bit more yellow. We'll just keep building up our colors here. Make that fire hotter and hotter. Yeah. So when doing fire or flame effects or like any kind of heat stuff, the source of the fire, which is kind of the butt end of the ship at this point, because our flames are going towards the cockpit, should be the hottest point, which means it should be the brightest point. So you want all your bright colors to be focused at the end or at the bottom, and then they should kind of like tail up, and the flame should get cooler or darker the further away from the source it goes, and that will help you create realistic feeling fire and flame effects. So we'll get to a point where I'll start mixing in just a little bit of white into my fire, but we're not quite there yet. And then, of course, to make it feel kind of ephemeral and flickery, you know, you can go through, and you don't want your colors to be like super solid. You want some of that underlayer to like splotch through, and fire and flames are really organic, like chaotic kind of element. So the more random and less uniform you can make it, which can be really challenging. I struggle a lot with the non-uniformity, because my hand really wants to be precise after all this time and everything. The better it'll look. And you can go back through and you can add like little floushes of color and brightness. You kind of build up your layers as you go too if you want. Just kind of play with it. But since this will kind of be our focal point, it's be the way to go. When can you expect new tournament scenarios? My goodness. So, you know, the idea is that you'll see tournament scenario refreshes at least with every new season of X-Wing, you want to give players enough time to acclimate themselves to the current set of conditions and questions being asked and all that stuff. So you don't want to shift things out too soon. So it's unlikely that you'll really see, mid-season, a sudden reset or update of tournament scenarios, right? They're typically going to last for an entire season. And then when the new season starts, at that point, it's very possible that you'll wind up seeing a couple of scenarios rotate out, maybe some changes to one or two of the scenarios, that kind of stuff. But as far as right now goes, especially with this initial foray into scenario play and the new kind of reset of the rules for X-Wing and everything, I think players have plenty on their plate to keep them thinking and on their toes and to still work out. I mean, we've been seeing so much list creativity and meta development from the community so far with just what's been going on that throwing a bunch of brand new scenarios or a scenario reset or reframe, I think would do more harm than good at this point. And that's just part of the evaluation that we're doing internally a lot and constantly looking at. It's are we at a point where maybe we need to consider something like a scenario reset? We updated the scenarios very quickly with the last points update, and we did that based on a lot of the feedback we'd seen and player set, but we knew going in that was likely going to be a very likely case because of how new and fresh everything was, and no matter how many games we can play internally or with our play testers, we're never going to be able to replicate the sheer number of games that get played when something's in the wild. And so you do have to be a little, especially when you're doing something like brand new, you have to be, ready to maybe make those adjustments, make those changes. But I don't think at this point that I would really expect a scenario refresh until after Worlds at Adepticon, and then we may start seeing a little bit of that new stuff. One or two new scenarios, maybe a whole new set of scenarios. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for that. It's a little ways away. I'm sure Plummer has thoughts, but we have not really discussed them too much currently internally. As far as what does next season look like? And I think that's because there's still a lot of really good data to be pulling before we start diving into that closer towards the end of the year. All right. Green flames. Whoosh. He's so speedy, so fast. What's an X-Wing season? Well, there's so when I say season, I'm mostly talking about in the frame of reference when it comes to the competitive meta. So if you hadn't heard the announcement or have missed it so far, Worlds for X-Wing is coming back. We're going to be kind of wrapping up all of the missed X-Wing seasons for Worlds since COVID started at Adepticon of 2023. And then basically that Adepticon Worlds event will kind of climate the end of the season and the start of the season. So from 2023 to 2024 Adepticon, that will be a new X-Wing season competitively. That will be where you'll see, that's where you'll have your chance to go to an X-Wing qualifier, to win an invite into Worlds at 2024, and all of that. So if you're playing, if that's something that you find really interesting and is a thing that you really want to do in X-Wing, which is to go on that path of, high level competition and everything, you'd be looking at the X-Wing season as your marker for that kind of stuff. So that's That's what I mean when I say season. So a season, effectively, it goes across an entire year of play. There are a number of different qualifiers and regional opens and store level championships and all that thing that you can qualify for the big finale at Adepticon in the following year. And those seasons, by their very nature, need to be fairly consistent in terms of the rules and the experience that players are having, so that they can appropriately practice and adjust lists, and you can see good meta growth and all that kind of like classic stuff, right? Like the NFL changes its main rule book and its rules on what is a catch, what isn't a catch. They don't do that mid-season, because that's disastrous, but they may do it the following season, right? Everyone gets together and they talk about what worked, what didn't. If there were rules, loopholes, or things they didn't like, or new developments and everything, they'll go in and take that opportunity to adjust, but they don't do it in the middle of the season for good reason, because if you keep shifting the rules in the middle of the thing, then you're not really getting a good competitive, you're not challenging player skills, you're more challenging their luck and their adapt. Well, there'll be a last chance qualifiers. The event schedule isn't completely set for Adepticon yet, but for the moment, the conversation is definitely that there will be a last chance qualifier, yeah. So if you didn't get your invite, you'll have one opportunity in that last chance qualifier to hop in and see if you can make the final cut. Always a big fan of LCQs for any kind of like competitive Worlds event, because I think, there are many folks who just don't have the opportunity, whether geographically or travel-wise, to be able to go to a bunch of different conventions throughout the year. Maybe Adepticon's the only one you can make, so we want to make sure that you have that opportunity to prove your skill and get your way in and, make the event the best it can be for yourself with whatever your goals are. So there more than likely will be a last chance qualifier there. Again, when that final event schedule is set, you'll be able to see if that remains true. There are things like space limitations and tables and all of that may factor into it. The number of competitors that we're going to get from all of the invites over the last 3 years since COVID is a big unknown for us. That list is being generated as people have responded back to our queries about, did you get a World's invite for 2021? Do you plan on attending? All that stuff, but things can still definitely happen. So, who knows, but there's already regional events that are happening actually right now. So I know that there's one, where is it, Nordics that you just announced, Summer? So there's a Nordics regional qualifier that just got announced. There's a couple others in the EU. I think there's one in Australia. Maybe. I know that there's a few. You can find the whole list on the website. They get announced as they get activated on social media and stuff through Facebook and everything. So Summer and BK do a great job of making sure that all of that information is as up to date as we get more info. But yeah, those more regional opens are back in swing, based on how things are going. So you can take a look where those are. There you go. Summer just posted the link for everyone. Yeah, so when you're doing a cockpit, the biggest things to keep in mind are you have to make sure that the edging around your glass pane is really dark, so black lined basically. And then what you want to do is take your base color, so in this case I chose green to be my cockpit color, mix that in with your black and create a really dark, basically a colored black of that version and put it over everything. And that gives you that nice little, as the light fades out, your eye will still catch the green that's in this black. So this is actually a green black, not a black black. And then you just start building up your colors lesser and lesser. So if you've ever seen some the classic, how to paint a gem, where you do half take your base color, mix it with a bit of black, so you're like 50-50, and then you do half the window pane with that, and then you go to your like base color and you do half the window pane with that, and then you get into those like really spot highlights and you just do lesser and less lines and you kind of build it up to get that really spot reflection. And then you can go in with your white or white mixed in with your base color depending on how, is that one not open? No, it is open, it's just clogged. Depending on how reflective you want that surface to be. And you can just do those last little dots, where your spotlight is hitting. Ooh. We got through it. Way more white than I needed though. But so I can take my little spot of white and I can come in here and just do like the slightest little glint of white highlight. And I don't want to do this on all the panes for sure, but maybe just like a little bit right there, just to show where that light is. And like on the main window, you might do a couple of them. And you can crosshatch on like these bigger parts and it'll kind of give you that nice anime, like mecha suit cell shaded effect. If you do a little crosshatching, which is pretty cool. It just makes it look like really high shine, high contrast. But it just takes a little bit of practice and then, really clear, just really careful like control of the brush and just go a little bit, like less and less until you get to those tops. And then you've got it. And then you can see like we got our green flames going on and we've got like 20 minutes left, but I don't want to mess this up. So now what do I do? Whoa, that's a great question because I'm really liking where this thing is. So maybe we'll just muss around a little bit and we'll add a little stuff here. So, where do we want to go here? Actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to work on those laser cannons a bit more. We're just going to build up those reds. There we go. Perfect. All right. So we'll just do a little, oh my gosh. We'll do the little laser cannons underneath. And this will really be kind of like the same idea where we're just going to, we started with our really dark red and we're just going to start building in kind of our brighter colors here. Just kind of get that going. And then there's not really any significant like ion engine glow or anything that needs to come back here. So I'll just come over here. Grab a little bit of white. I'll take this to a pink. Maybe we'll just do yellow. Make it hot. There we go. Kind of mix it in orange. The standard loadout cards are tarot sized, yeah. So if you happen to play in the Aces High event that went out to stores earlier in the year, those ship cards that were used and handed out as part of the prizes that you got for playing in the event, those are basically the template that we wound up using for standard loadouts. So they have all the information right there. They're tarot card sized. We have the full art, the full amazing ship art on the backs of the cards. So they look great in the binder even when not in use. Let's go ahead and, can I find a silver summer? Every time, I tells you. Maybe. Let's see. We'll do just a little bit of metallic accenting here. Probably pick out some things because we still got a little bit of time. So maybe we'll come in here and do like this little strut. Just to give ourselves a little bit more of that nice fancy contrast. flipping around. We'll hit this little bit. These little like metallic doodads and things. Get in here where the body is. I don't go too crazy on this stuff, but a little bit of visual interest and some nice shiny metallic bits. The reprints are more than likely going to be dual packs, just like the most recently released ships have been. Although that information might adjust as we go forward, but right now that's the current plan. Knock that out. I haven't heard anything about, any additional logistics or shipping delays when it comes to our products in a while. So, I mean, we've been obviously, just like every place, still kind of like working our way through, the logistics and shipping delays that started with COVID and everything else, and that supply line is still not as reliable as it once was. But I haven't heard of anything like new or significant. I'm sure that, like everything, there's plenty of stuff going on in the world that can affect all these things, and then it compounds and it kind of makes it all like really tough. But nothing that I've heard recently that has raised anything more significant than what we kind of already have been talking about and knew. Yeah, the plan for bombers currently is a dual pack. So just like all of the recent ship releases, the Resistance Y-Wings, the Clone Z95s, the Rogue class, the 2-ship packs are effectively what you're going to see going forward for the vast majority of like fighter-sized ship releases. All right. The reprints will not include any new content. So the goal is to not make things that players who already have the ships have to buy. The reprints are specifically to get things back into print for players who joined the game or started playing post those ships not being available anymore. So our intention is not to put in like one card that everyone who already owns 3 TIE bombers is going to have to go get. The reprints are planned to have like standard loadouts in them. So those will be new, quote unquote, but those standard loadouts will use all existing card upgrades and pilot abilities and all that. So they won't be new content. They'll just be, think of them like the old kind of quick build idea. Except that, of course, these are usable in the standard game, as we've discussed, because they have point values and everything. So if you're a new player and you pick one up, you're going to have that standard loadout to immediately be able to start playing with your TIE bomber without having to figure out what to equip it with or anything like that. But those standard loadouts are not going to have anything new to them. Like, you as an existing X-Wing player can make the exact same ship utilizing your library of existing cards. So, dual Lambda does seem like a bit much. Again, fighter-sized ships I don't really see a world in which, shuttle-sized ships might wind up in 2-packs. But I don't know. I mean, we haven't really discussed it. So the sky's the limit. Do I have a good color that's like right next to me? That's really gray, but we'll give it a try. I'm just going to do a really quick edge highlight just to give, because I got 4 minutes left, so why not? So I'm just going to edge highlight the top of the wing here. Just give it that like extra little pop of contrast. And my goal here will be to not take it so far that I lose my black, but instead just kind of accentuate the depth of color that we have going on with how the speed paint worked over. That line is too big. There we go. There we go. So just kind of doing this like little edge highlight can really take that paint job to the next level. It's done kind of like sparingly and accordingly. So I'm mostly just like running the edge of the brush over those high points, letting the color kind of like play out on those parts. Like here. There, a little bit there, mostly on the wings though, because the wings are the spot with the most raised areas where that light would really hit. Just really kind of gentle, like edge highlight. Nothing too crazy. Just picking out some of those spots where the light would really hit. Right on those points on the wings. Maybe like in here. And then maybe right here. And then maybe just doing a little bit. Just a couple like freehand lines right at the top of the little cockpit ball. Just that would get a little bit of a sheen. All right, there we go. All wrapped up, one tie advanced. Now painted Shadow Squadron colors with the green flames, because, you know, what's the fun of stealth if they can't see you coming? Nonsense. So there you go. A really quick 1 hour paint job where we've turned this basic tie advance into one swank, unique ride that'll get used on the tabletop. Maybe this will be how Darth Vader blows up Luke Skywalker in the next battle if you haven't played through. Who knows? All right, with that, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a great time. I will be back tomorrow because Dallas Kemp is on vacation at 1 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be painting some Marvel Crisis Protocol. And you can always catch us back next week at Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific as well. See what else we're working on. Till then, take care, be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.